Welcome to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin, and next to me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
And as always, we are joined by our producer, Richard.
Ahoy, hoy.
Who is flipping me the bird. Each week we talk about... No, the bird is not the word. Each week we talk about the world of DC Comics and field questions from listeners like you, while I am the supporting character that provides the excuse for exposition in every urban fantasy series.
Very true. Extremely true.
Quite apt.
Yeah.
There's too many big words in there. There's a part of me...
Did your brain ouchie?
A little ouchie, yeah. There's a part of me that's like, I see the word fantasy and I'm a disgusting human, so I'm like, is this dude jerking off about me? What's going on here?
I mean, Grant, are you?
We'll wait.
that What Colin Does was sent in by Grant Richter.
Thanks, Grant.
He may have other aliases, ones that I will not disclose at this moment.
G Rich.
You want to send in your own What Colin Does?
Then give us a 5-star review on iTunes and write it in the comments. You can also leave us a comment as well if you like. But if you, 5-star review, and then if you write in the comments what Colin does, then Colin will read it on air, live from New York. It's Saturday night,
guys. It's Monday.
Shut up.
Day of week.
News.
Wow, now you're taking on the news.
Yeah, nice.
Comic book legend Len Wein. Is it Wein? Wine?
I actually think it's wine.
Wine? But Len Wein passes away at the age of 69.
Yes.
I'm sorry for that small little
you know what?
Nose laugh that I did there.
69. He died the way he lived.
Yeah, but it's the rhyme.
He died doing what he loves.
Oh, come on.
He died the way he lived?
No, Len
is Len a man or a woman?
A man.
Okay.
Len Wein is...
But you can steal my sunshine.
Is like a... No, not that Len. Len Wein is like a legendary comic book creator. Very influential for years and years, but possibly most famous as the co-creator of Wolverine, but also the co-creator of Swamp Thing.
And also the co-creator of that sex position where two people get real opposite.
Do you think he's been 69 the whole time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he died the way he lived. At the age of 69.
Yeah, so Len Wein back in the 70s, he co-created with Bernie Wrightson.
Cunnilingus.
He co-created Swamp Thing, which is now like a legendary...
Not legendary pictures.
Legendary comic book character that many like influential artists have worked on, including like Alan Moore, and it was adapted into movies, and it was a cartoon that Richard was singing the theme song of, the rip-off of Wild Thing. But then also, like I said, the co-creator of Wolverine, like one of the most iconic and enduring and like financially bankable comic book characters of all time.
Really raised the profile of one single actor for the last like 12 years.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Who?
No, Hugh.
Apparently not.
His name was Hugh?
Yeah, Jackman.
Oh, the
Jackman.
Yeah,
Wolverine.
Yes, Wolverine is the
Schnick.
Yeah.
Schnicked, exactly.
The claw one.
But at any rate, we have
Claw.
we have Len Wein to thank for that, and even up until like recent years, he was still writing comics. Len Wein like returned to Swamp Thing, like in the last like 2-3 years. He wrote on Swamp Thing again,
and this year he returned to the Swamp.
Oh,
thing.
Come on. But at any rate, it is extremely sad news that he's passed away. He's very influential to a number of people who create comics today, but also just to the general sort of popular cultural landscape. So, yeah.
What was your favorite like era of his? Was it Swamp Thing?
It's actually the very first appearance of Swamp Thing, which is House of Secrets number 72, I think is the issue.
House of Secrets sounds like my...
No. But in that issue, the character is a little bit different than what he... Did you also
grow up in that house from that movie we watched last night?
Yo, Colin, just let it go. No, but in that issue, the origin of Swamp Thing is a little bit... It hasn't been like tweaked. He's not like that superhero-y yet. And that original story, it's very like neo-Gothic. It feels like Mary Shelley, like Frankenstein. It's like a really like literary kind of approach to comic books, and that I think is what has stuck with me. I wasn't alive when it originally came out, but I think reading that and recognizing who it was and who wrote it, I think that's probably like the biggest connection I have to Len Wein's work. Yeah,
I think I might actually enjoy reading that because it sounds like it has like a pretty straightforward approach.
Actually, you probably would. I think and especially because you've picked up on art a lot in the stuff that we've had you read.
Yeah.
You seem to take to the art style and that particular issue.
Specifically the eyes of the character.
Actually, yeah. It's funny enough. Yeah, there are like crazy expressive eyes in that issue. I actually think, I think you would be really struck with it.
I think kind of my logic or my reasoning behind the way that I look at like comic characters that you guys give me is the fact that like most of their faces are covered, right? Like they have like masks, and so you kind of have to go off what the eyes are.
Do you know what? That's very true.
The eyes take it. Moving on. Titans live action casts. It's Hawk and Dove.
Yeah, so we've talked about Hawk and Dove.
Hawk and Dove.
Briefly
Dove
on the... Oh, I thought I...
Nope, I'm done. There's a cock joke in there.
One vagina, the other a cock.
Yeah, no, there it was.
Technically.
Yeah.
We talked about Dove on our collector card extravaganza.
Yes, we did.
So Hawk and Dove draw their powers respectively as the avatars of war and peace. So for this Titans series, they've cast a male hawk and a female dove, which is maybe like the most common iteration of them. It's not the original, but what came later. Actually, the guy
were they both dudes originally?
Yeah, they were brothers, Hank and Don Hall, and then Don Hall was killed, and then a woman replaced him. Don spelled D-A-W-N. Don Granger.
D-O-N.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they've cast it as Hank Hall and Don Granger. And the guy playing Hank Hall is what's his name? Alan Ritchson. He played Aquaman on Smallville.
Oh, pretty boy, yeah.
Yeah, pretty boy, squinty eyes. He does kind of, yeah. But at any rate, he's playing Hawk, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember the name of the person playing Dove. But just... visually, they seem well cast. I only really remember Alan Ritchson's performances from Smallville, so I'm just going to assume that like the bar has raised since that time. But in general, like I remember enjoying him on that show. Like I didn't think he was a particular weak point, in the context of what that show was. Yeah. So yeah,
amazing.
They're starting to round out the cast. So now we've got a Dick Grayson. Robin / Nightwing.
You got a dick.
Starfire. We've got Raven. We've got Hawk and Dove. Everyone does need a dick, especially the Titans.
Gavin O'Connor is set to direct Suicide Squad 2?
Yes.
Didn't they learn their lesson the first time with that series of movie and maybe stop?
Well, except that it made a disgusting amount of money.
Well, probably because everyone was jacking off on the fact that Jared Leto was going to be the Joker, and then they put him in, 2 scenes?
Regardless, it made a ton of money.
They did the old bait and switch on, I think, everybody with that.
Yeah, they did a little bit.
Do you think he was a dick to somebody and they were like, fuck you, we're cutting everything?
I mean, I know he was a dick to people because there were all those stories about him, quote unquote, method acting and like mailing used condoms to other castmates. So he was definitely a dick to people.
Oh, you've never got that care package from Richard?
No. And I hope I never do.
That's just me then, I guess.
Question is who used it.
But yeah, so this Gavin O'Connor, I'm not super familiar with him, but I guess he's the guy that directed The Accountant.
Yeah.
And he directed Miracle.
Yeah, that's really good. It's good.
It's actually a good movie.
Is it?
Yeah. It's actually a good movie.
All right. So then, you guys have seen it. I haven't. So based on what you've gathered of the direction of that movie, good choice for a Suicide Squad movie? Like, is he the sort of person you would hand a superhero movie to?
I think so. I mean, The Accountant's kind of a superhero movie in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a guy who has specific abilities because something that like happened to him as a child.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like it's kind of a superhero movie.
Right.
Without all like the powers and that kind of
But just like a very like grounded, like he has the kind of power that you can have. Instead of flying, he's like good at math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but he's so like he was raised. I mean, do you remember? You know the premise of the
Very,
an
very
autistic
generally.
kid who's like has a father who's like a military guy, and because he doesn't have any support, like I think their mother died or bailed or something like
Right.
that. So he like forces all his like military like mindsets into like raising.
Oh, like the
autistic
discipline
son.
and
and so like putting him through like sensory overload to try to like get him past.
Oh,
It's not great parenting. So.
yeah.
It's,
Interesting.
anyways, I mean,
It's a really good movie.
It's a really good movie, despite a lot of the terrible.
But
things
do
in
you,
it, yeah.
but you consider that to be a solid
I'm-
piece of a CV to then transfer over to a superhero
so
movie?
Think of it like this: the movie ended up being fairly well grounded and good,
Right.
considering a ridiculous premise.
Sure. Yeah.
Suicide Squad,
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
So that's
Right.
kind of what I think that would be mindset. My mindset is that he could possibly ground something that's so fucking ridiculous that like, I found that wasn't done in the original Suicide Squad.
What I'll say is for Suicide Squad 2, I would hope to see at least a couple of the other like original team members show up in it, like Bronze Tiger or like Count Vertigo or something like that.
Well, they need to like replace
Slipknot.
Yeah.
They have to replace Slipknot, the man who can climb anything. Not anymore.
Oh, and didn't Boomerang die?
No, Diablo died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Boomerang made it somehow.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, crikey.
But so they do have a couple members that need to replace.
Yeah.
So that's a good opportunity to do it. What I would love to see is them actually like flesh out some of the characters, because it was just like, here are some people with some like video game like screen that pops up, and then it's like they're going to go on an adventure where they walk straight.
Yeah, I mean, like I see Suicide Squad 2 as having the opportunity to do the thing that The Incredible Hulk did. The Incredible Hulk is technically like a sequel to the Ang Lee one, because where you meet him, he's in South
right.
America, and that's
Yeah.
where that original one like ends.
Yeah,
But they basically
birds just fly by the screen, and then you never see anything.
But they basically like ignore that first movie, slightly tweak the origin. I think they even call it like a requel. It's like a reboot and a sequel.
reboot.
So I think Suicide Squad 2 actually has that opportunity to do the same thing. Like, yeah, fine, the first movie happened, but like, let's start fresh. Let's actually like learn about the characters and like write a movie with a plot.
But here's the thing: it was super successful. So,
yeah, but I don't know that they just get away with that again.
No,
Like because I think a lot of people felt pretty disappointed.
gypped.
I don't think we should use that.
I think the word
but-
would be duped.
yeah, duped.
Well, I just mean,
But yeah,
that like it did well. Like, I mean, generally, like when a movie is badly perceived in the beginning, people don't keep coming out, even when people are excited. Like, think about the Daredevil movie that originally came out.
Yeah.
That movie didn't do well because people were really excited about it, and they found out how terrible it was, and then they didn't go. People found out how terrible it was, and everybody just kept going.
but I don't have the stats on me, but I'd be curious to know what its like week to week drop was.
Yeah.
Like if it
actually
was like
affected it.
huge in that like opening and then like really suffered after. I don't remember offhand, but
Yeah.
at any rate, it made a ton of money, so they're doing another one.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Are we going to see more of the Joker in the second one?
Presumably because he breaks Harley out of Belle Rev at the end of the first one.
But
And I think even he himself recently has said that they're kind of working on how he'll work into Suicide Squad 2, but also into that Gotham City Sirens project as well. So I would expect to see the Joker again in Suicide Squad. Yeah.
Patty Jenkins is set to direct the Wonder Woman sequel.
I know this is pretty obvious, but
It is obvious, but it's actually like confirmed and solidified now. And I'm sure the internet will correct me. And this isn't my own fault for not actually clicking on some of these links. But I did, as I was like sort of scanning through news, I stumbled across something to the effect of that this is like a relatively significant contract negotiation. There's something about a female director actually being hired on the sequel of a project or
generally,
something like that.
like when you consider like
A sequel of their own project, I think
any
is
superhero movie, generally they don't have the same the same director for a sequel.
But I think this is beyond just the superhero genre. It's something about a female director actually helming the sequel to their original project. Internet, correct me if I got this wrong, but I feel like basically they were leaning towards this is either the first or one of the first times it's actually happened, so it's like a nice step forward that way. But yeah, I mean, she crushed it on the first one, so why wouldn't you give her the second one? She knows that character. She's stayed very true to the comic book roots, but has made it fit really nicely into the cinematic universe. I don't see why you wouldn't give her the sequel. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Do you think that they really, because admittedly I've yet to see it,
right?
But if she did as well as obviously she did, do you think it's fair to say that they gave it to her, or do you think she fucking took it? Like I think that if you like genuinely knock something out of the park, to use sports terms for our sports fans, is it really fair to say that they're giving it back to her, or is it like she's just like, no, this is mine now?
Well, like, I mean, they are, because ultimately the studio can do whatever they want. Yeah. If the studio was like, you know what, we loved the first movie, but we're going for more of a McG vibe with the sequel, then they could hire McG and do that. But no, I mean, you're right. I think her success with the first one pretty much made her the choice.
Yeah.
But I think it's still significant that it's actually like solidified, because they could very easily be like, great, thanks for getting us going, but we really like what, Rian Johnson is doing over on Star Wars. We're going to bring him over, or something like that. Right. So, yeah, so that's big news too.
Chuck Dixon released his 40,000th page today, making him the most published comic book writer of all time.
Yeah. So
how old is that guy?
He's not that old.
So he's just super productive.
Yeah, he's very, very prolific. I believe that this is corroborated by a statistician, but effectively, Chuck Dixon, I think, is credited on like approaching like 1,700 single issues of comic books. He's written for Marvel and DC and all sorts of different things. I think the comic that actually pushes him past this milestone is Bane Conquest #5, which is just out or just about to come out.
Do you think he's a good writer?
Chuck Dixon? Yeah, I've read some of his stuff. I like Chuck Dixon, but I think more than anything, he's just super prolific. I mean, and you don't get to be that prolific if you're not good.
Yeah, I mean,
I what I will say is, to me, Chuck Dixon, I don't have a relationship to his work where I'm like, oh yeah, this guy, I'm going out, I'm getting every single one, blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean that like disparagingly, but I don't have that relationship to his work. I'm sure there are people out there that do.
Do they have a box set for those people?
They should.
All 40,000 pages.
They should, right? Like, for me, there's people like Grant Morrison, or even like a Jeff Johns, or people like that, or Mark Miller, or insert name Alan Moore, where you're drawn to their style of work and you can recognize it. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I can with Chuck Dixon, but that's
why he gets to work so much.
It's also it could just be relative lack of exposure. Like maybe he has a super particular style and I'm the one that's weird. But
internet, time to put up or shut up.
Yeah. So if you agree with me that Chuck Dixon is a talented writer, but you just don't have that connection with
hashtag
him.
Dix yes.
Dix yes. And if you disagree, it's hashtag Dix no.
That's DIX.
Yes or no.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Colin.
I've never seen you jump on a dick so quickly.
Yeah, well, I take my time. I like to make sure I know what I'm getting myself into. Oh my God, no!
The penny just dropped. There we go.
Hey,
we don't have those anymore.
Pennywise, but no.
Gross. Gross. So the Scarecrow has decided to terrorize Gotham, and Batman is saying, "Fuck you."
Do you want to watch the trailer?
In the trailer.
Do you want to watch the trailer?
We should.
He literally says, "Fuck you." The trailer.
We should watch the trailer. Cue magical sound effect.
Just 3 guys watching a trailer. Trailer.
Nothing gay about it. right, so that was the trailer for the upcoming season of Gotham. Colin,
pretend like the recording didn't just stop and we talked a bunch.
Which is what I was doing.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Colin, what did you think?
So yeah,
I don't like a whole lot that goes on Fox, to be honest, and
they don't give a Fox.
They don't, and I don't, and the end. No, I don't. It was really underwhelming. There was a lot of like the sound effects were very like trying to be edgy and in your face, like like okay.
Well, because this
and it's all dark.
We've talked about this before. Gotham is desperately like rushing to push Bruce Wayne into his Batman starting position.
He's like he wears a fucking Batman mask almost.
He's fucking 12.
They just took off the bat like ears.
Yeah, he just hasn't figured out the ears yet.
Yeah,
it's like I shall become a mask.
I'm a masked teenager.
Yeah. Call me Mask Man.
I'm a rich white kid who's suddenly putting on this black face.
No one was thinking that.
Okay.
But
what do you think?
I will say this. If the show's going to go full comic book, it's good to push Bruce into the Batman role because you can't sustain a show with supervillains and no superhero. So if they've already, which they have, populated the world with, Mr. Freeze and the Riddler and Ra's al Ghul and Catwoman and Poison Ivy and all these and Scarecrow,
Batman Jr. Oh wait, the comic book that never existed.
Yeah, so I mean, like if you're going to do
Batman
that,
and Friends,
obviously.
If you're going to do that, then make young Bruce Wayne, like get him in there fighting crime to try and play catch up. But they shouldn't be in this position in the first place, in my opinion. And it's not enough to inspire me to watch the show again. I stopped when they went full supervillain when the Mr. Freeze arc in season 2 happened.
You got farther than me. Yeah.
And it's just I've said it before. I know some people really love the show. If you love it, keep watching it. But it's wrong to me. Like it's not what I want out of that show. So when the Riddler stuff started happening, I was interested. Oh, totally.
That part was really
He's
good.
Great.
And then everything past that.
Yeah.
They brought Jim Carrey back or what?
God, no.
No, but
mercifully not.
Their Enigma stuff was good.
Yeah, it was
the way
actually.
To create his character, like it made a lot of sense. And then he started becoming friends with Penguin, and I started becoming less interested. And then it was like suddenly everybody like broke out of this prison, and they had the bus full of bad guys. And
they were on a field trip.
It fucking felt like
Batman and Friends.
Yeah. That was when I fell off, and so I think at this point they're just doubling down.
Oh yeah, it's full superhero now. I mean, like the Scarecrow is like a major villain.
If, like, so. You remember like how this usually all happens in 20 years? But we're just gonna pretend like it's now.
So like, fair enough. That's what Gotham is now, and that's fine. But for me, that's not enough to get me back on the train.
So here's a real question: is next season gonna have like a 5-year-old that's gonna be Robin? Oh, Batman! I go fight the bad guys.
But he still has to be an acrobat, right? He still has to be.
Batman.
It's good. Like, look who's talking.
Oh, Batman! I have to pee.
You can wait.
But this is starting to sound like All-Star Batman.
But Batman, I can't hold.
Well, I have an awkward boner, so just you can deal with it. It's teenage Batman. It's gonna happen.
You can deal with it. Really? Come on.
I saw Catwoman.
Jesus. At any rate, Gotham on Fox.
I love how the Penguin looked like some like greasy goth kid from
the Penguin is one of the stronger parts of that show.
He's good part of that fucking show.
I think the show does a great job of casting. They just have like the timeline of the plot wrong. But the casting on that show has been great. I really like the Penguin. It'd be fun for me if they Riverdale the shit out of Batman and just made it like a
he's gonna fucking
like a high school drama kind of thing. like a YA high
but you
school
can
drama.
do that too. That's Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
It's what this should have been.
Yeah, you can totally do that because the original pitch for Batman Beyond was to do like a young Batman show.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, how about instead of it being like teenage Bruce Wayne, why don't we like set it in the future with this new character, blah, blah, blah. But that was exactly the pitch, basically.
So
it's already been done. They're just not doing it right.
Heath Ledger documentary clip covers his Joker from The Dark Knight.
Yeah, so it's relatively well documented that Heath Ledger, again, part of this isn't really what method acting is meant to be, but it's kind of become this. But he basically, to find the character and find the physicality and the voice and the psyche of the Joker for The Dark Knight, he basically like locked himself in a motel or something like that for a couple of weeks.
I heard it was longer than that.
I'm not sure precisely. Presumably, this documentary addresses that.
It'll enlighten us.
But basically, he really put himself through the ringer, like emotionally and psychologically, to try and find this character, to try and be truthful in his performance and all those things. And I mean, it's the single best superhero movie, like comic book movie performance ever.
The reality is this like...
And he won the Academy Award, but...
Posthumously.
Yeah. I mean, there's no definitive link that playing the Joker, led to him, abusing drugs and things like that, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm assuming...
No, he started doing that.
I don't know, but...
Yeah.
Hopefully what this documentary does, though, is maybe...
shine a light on a dark situation.
Yeah, so not so much even really about the thing that ultimately took Heath Ledger's life, but just this idea that to have a good performance or play a character truthfully, that you have to destroy yourself. That's not true.
Well, look at Christian Bale. He went from Batman or the Mechanic to Batman, which was mental.
And that's a big physical transformation, and that's dangerous too. But I just mean the mental, the psychological side.
Well, imagine the mental and psychological destruction that happens to your body when you cripple your body.
Sorry, yeah, and I'm not trying to belittle that sort of side of it either. But here's a great actor Ian McKellen. Did Ian McKellen put himself in a concentration camp to play Magneto? No, because you don't have to. There's a point at which the research you're doing for your character is now you've gone past the point of research and truthfulness and into the point of
obsession.
I mean possibly that, but I think there's a limit to what you can actually learn through that process versus what it does to you. And there's that tipping point, and I think some people don't necessarily know. We already talked about Jared Leto's dickish on-set behavior, and that's a very silly, or not even silly because it's disgusting, but it's a very example of it. But on the other end, you've got someone like Heath Ledger who delivered the performance of a lifetime, and who really knows what that did to him. So this documentary is another chance to see his dedication as an actor, but maybe also an opportunity to see some of the potential dangers of that line of work, emotionally. So I'm not exactly sure what to expect from it.
Yeah. Well, because was The Dark Knight, the Joker role, was that his final role? Because I feel like he did another film he was working on.
He did the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and that movie wasn't finished when he died. And that's why there's also Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell also play his parts.
Yeah.
And actually, it works quite nicely in the film, the way that Terry Gilliam did it. But I think that's actually Heath Ledger's final performance.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So this week's theme is Booster Gold.
That's right. It is Booster Gold, and that is
blonde-headed billionaire playboy.
Well, that's because
Booster Gold.
Because last week I gave you Booster Gold Volume 1, Number 7 as your third now reading assignment. Mm-hmm. So, we always start this off the same way. Why don't you take us through this issue. Like, give us the play-by-play, the synopsis first, and then we'll talk about what you liked or didn't like.
Okay. So we'll start with what I didn't like.
Well, no, let's start with what it's about.
Oh, okay.
As he just like cracks his finger.
Yeah.
Like, here we go.
Yeah, let's start with what it's about.
Okay, so Booster Gold is about... there is this dude called like Ranzi Z. They call him. They keep calling him Z.
Yeah.
And he is a 6-inch person thing from a different planet.
We're called people. Okay.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah.
And he is on Earth trying to get the help of superheroes to overthrow this supposed evil, corrupt government that has like tortured and killed his wife and kid.
Right.
Kids?
Yeah, I think so.
Kids. Yeah. And so, you know, Superman and this little like flying robot orb thingy.
His name is Skeets.
Yeah, whatever.
That's Booster's sidekick.
Skeet. Yeah.
Did you see it going?
Yeah. I saw all the skeet flying through your eyes.
I saw the fire. Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because there's a point where his like assistant is saying like, you know, Batman has like Robin and like people have all these like guy characters, sidekicks for the ladies. We got to like get one for the guys now. He's like, we're gonna like make this like super hot.
Okay, this
sidekick chick.
This is true, but it's a sidebar from the
which
main
is
story.
A lot of fun, and it's like Dr. Sue.
So let's finish the synopsis because this is a sidebar that doesn't really affect the plot of this issue.
Fine. So they're there and they get dosed with LSD mind by this guy's wife and trips them all out, and they like end up in this jail.
Yep.
And they're like, and so it comes out, they're like, man, like on Earth, you're like 6 inches tall. Like, how did you get so big? And he's like, no, like you got small.
Sure. Yeah. They've been shrunk down in the transporting. Yeah.
And then, so Z tells Booster Gold or tells them all that this terrible dude is, wrecking stuff. And Booster Gold is like, that's it. We got to act. We got to overthrow this government and we got to like let these people do their thing. And Superman's like kind of the voice of reason. He's like the older brother kind of vibe. And he's like, whoa, dude, chill. Like these people have been here for years and years and years. And like, we don't really know the whole story yet. So like, calm your tits. Yeah. Like, relax. We're not sure what's going on yet. Just like, calm down. He's like, no, we got to get out of here. We have superpowers. We can do whatever we want. And he's like, exactly. Like, chill out. Which is a kind of leads back to when we were talking about like the World War II comics and how it was like you can't just like go kill Hitler because that'll demean things. It kind of has that same kind of vibe to it where it's like don't like just
that they shouldn't just march in and
free will, like you can't fuck with free will. And so
it's almost like the Prime Directive.
And so there was a part there where I just kind of like rolled my eyes because it's like, okay, of course. And but yeah, so eventually they get out and it comes to terms that this guy's the ruler is Lord Galeb.
Yep.
And his wife, she has like read their minds while they were like unconscious or whatever. And she knows that their intentions were to, help and not hurt. And then, spoiler alert, Z is Dr. Galeb's stepbrother. Boom.
Yeah.
And he wants to overthrow him. He's been trying to overthrow him for years. That's super exciting stuff. But before that kind of comes to light, Superman has to stop Booster Gold from being a total dick turd and fucking everything up. And so they get into this fight, and Booster Gold is like, oh man, Superman's actually not all that tough. This is kind of actually easy. And Superman's like, I don't really want to hurt him. So it is like a total Big Brother thing. It's really funny. Yeah. Not like 1984 Big Brother, but like
I know what you
older
mean.
sibling, And then, it comes out that, it's a stepbrother, and he's been trying to overthrow him for years. And then, so in the middle of this, there's this kind of like aside with Dr. Sue and I can't remember the guy's name, but it's Booster Gold's like assistant.
It's his like business manager.
Yeah. So he brings up the fact that he has this like interview with Lois Lane later, and that comes up at the very end, which is kind of neat. And Superman gets a little jealous.
He does.
He gets a little miffed because Booster Gold is this like shiny and new guy, and Lois Lane is like, oh yeah, you know, like he's new and exciting, and I have to interview him because everyone wants somebody new and exciting.
Yeah.
And Superman gets genuinely jealous.
He does.
Which I kind of enjoyed a little bit. Because I was like, you know, he's this rational, logical mind in the heat of a situation involving other people's emotions. And then as soon as it has to do with his own, he kind of loses control.
Yep. So, yeah. So you're
he tells Skeet to like keep this guy out of his way.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, Superman does not like Booster.
And not in a roundabout way. It's very direct. Yeah. He says, just keep him out of my way.
Yeah, exactly. So you're absolutely right. So, Superman and Booster Gold are on this alien world because they think they're going to go help topple a dictator. And then Superman is, like you said, he's the voice of reason. And it eventually comes out that the quote unquote dictator is actually like rightfully the ruler of this world. And Booster was ready to go off like half-cocked and basically overthrow like a sovereign government because he has powers.
Oh no, he was going in full cock.
Well, yeah, sure. So that's what this issue is about. Did you like it?
I'm a 50-50 on this one.
Okay, how about this? Why don't you tell me a couple of things you liked or didn't like? I'll give you a little background on Booster Gold as a character, and then you can tell me whether or not it changes how you felt about this particular issue.
Okay. So as it's kind of been obviously stated in past episodes where I get comic books, I really enjoy artwork.
Yes.
The stories are kind of, you know, the same kind of thing. You know, the good guy always wins in the end. But I really enjoy the artwork. And so that's really important to me. The thing that I really enjoyed about Ultra Comics, Grant Morrison's comic book, was the really the really intense artwork. I really enjoyed it.
Right.
I found the artwork in Booster Gold to be kind of underwhelming. And especially because the cover of it is like Superman is like pulling his face out of like a puddle of maybe gold blood. Like, I don't know what that is. But the artwork on the inside was really underwhelming. And so I was really sold on this, like, oh, this is going to be crazy. Inside's going to be nuts. But their fight scene is kind of like, it's like hijinksy. It's like Dick Van Dyke, like falling over a stool through a wall. And then he's like, oh, and then he comes through the wall. Right. Like, it's not like, it was kind of campy.
But I mean, but even you've said it's not necessarily a high stakes fight. I mean, Booster is only fighting Superman because Superman is getting in his way. Yeah. And Superman is pulling all of his punches with Booster.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a half fight.
It totally is a half fight. But just like, as I'm saying, I'm not expecting them to be like murdering each other.
Yeah. Right.
But on the cover and before having any real context, like, it's like there's a statement underneath Booster Gold that says, guess who's winning?
Yeah.
And it's like, so in that kind of aspect, when you are looking at the cover, if you were to judge this book by its cover, you would assume that Booster Gold is like a villain and Superman has to conquer this villain. Which I guess in essence it kind of is, right? It's conquering the ego.
I mean, yeah, Booster Gold ends up being a little bit the like antagonist of this story. Yeah, I wouldn't call him a villain because he's trying to do the right thing, but you're right. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the character.
Yeah, who's Booster Gold? What's his deal?
His name sounds like he's a pimp. I'm just going to say that. Ladies, watch out! Here comes the Booster Gold.
Oh no. DC execs.
So rebrand.
Come here, my bitches.
No, I'm out.
Little gold for all of y'all.
So Booster Gold, his real name is Michael John Carter. He's from the 25th century. He's from the future. And in that future, he was like a star, like college football player. And he was going to go pro. And then his father had a gambling issue and his mother had like a illness and the family couldn't afford things. So Booster, that was his nickname, starts betting on his own games and eventually throwing games to make money to help his mom and to bail out his dad. And he gets caught and it ruins his career and he goes to prison for a bit. When he gets out of prison, the only job he can get is as like a night watchman at this museum. It's like a superhero museum in the 25th century. And so in this museum, he decides he's going to use knowledge of the future in the past to become a superhero and make himself wealthy and famous. So he steals a Legion of Superheroes flight ring, a time sphere to travel through time, and a power suit and like a anti-gravity belt. And as he's about to be apprehended by a security robot, Skeets, he takes him too. And they go back in time, and Skeets ends up being his partner with knowledge of the future, like encoded as a computer. And they know what crimes are going to happen, so he can like get there to save the day. But he's doing it to try and get famous and wealthy. Which is why you see in this comic book, when it cuts back to Earth, there's like, it's called like Gold Star Industries. That's like Booster's company to manage his brand. That's why they're trying to like, we need to get him like a sexy sidekick. That's why it's so like corporate. It's because that was kind of like the thing with this character. So Superman already doesn't like him because he thinks that he's like a showboat and that he's not in it, that he's not in it for the right reasons. Booster does, though, genuinely at a certain point want to do good, but he's not the smartest and he's not even the bravest. And all of his powers are granted to him either by future tech or future knowledge. So he's kind of, he doesn't have really advantages going in. He's not actually like heroic. He becomes heroic over time. So I think what you see in this issue is that starting to like turn for Booster, that he wants to do good, but he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just like he hasn't been doing it long enough, and he's not using his head, and he thinks that having powers makes you a hero. And Superman is trying to show him that that's not the case, and Booster won't listen.
So does he have some sort of arc, like through a trade?
Like through this volume and then future volume, he has a huge arc, basically. He joins the Justice League International, which was kind of like a silly era for the Justice League. At one point, Gnort was in there.
Yeah.
But Booster is on like the front lines when Doomsday shows up. Like originally, actually Booster is the one that calls him Doomsday. He's and
oh really?
Yeah. So basically, the creature like tears through the Justice League, and Superman is like, "What's going on?" And Booster's like, "It's Doomsday." Yeah, and he's all like beat up and bloody and that, and then Doomsday kills Superman. So Booster is like part of that arc. And then like his good friend is the Blue Beetle, Ted Kord, and when he gets killed years later, that kind of propels Booster to become more of a hero as well, to try and live up to Ted's example. And so through a series called 52, and then like a second volume of Booster Gold, he becomes a hero. And his adventures often involve time travel. His initial ones didn't, because he just simply came from the future and then was a hero in the present. But that time travel thing kind of catches up with him. So now when Booster shows up, it usually involves some sort of like time issue. Someone is changing the past, or someone is, like pillaging artifacts or whatever it is, right? So that's a little background on Booster. Does that change anything about how you feel about this issue?
No, not really.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
No, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
Because that's what podcasts are.
It is.
That's why you listen. I look at Booster Gold now as being able to, as you say, see the future. So his way to manipulate essentially time and space in terms of a fight, because he knows exactly what's going to happen every step of the way, or should.
Well, I mean, he's going off historical records. Like, he knows like what crimes are going to take place. But just like when we read the news, it doesn't say like, and then this guy threw a left hook, and then this guy like ducked.
Oh, and then he ducked, but he caught him with a hell of a jab.
He doesn't have like every detail.
Okay.
It's slightly more general than that. But yeah, it's roughly that idea.
It's interesting. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think it's kind of neat. I'm a little bit now more bummed out about the fact that he was so like hot to trot on throwing overthrowing this regime if he understands like time and space and he has knowledge of all this stuff. But like, is his knowledge only on Earth?
It might only be on Earth.
Okay, so that would make sense then.
Yeah. Are you at all interested in like more Booster Gold? Or does that character like it's kind of like his intro do anything for you?
It's like a wrap for me. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just kind of like a showboaty, flash in the pan kind of character. It seems.
Right.
He seems like the kind of guy who's just like, and they kind of go out of their way to kind of express that too. Like it's a new news week, so everybody wants something new.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, that's Lois's point near the end of the issue when she's saying that to Superman.
Yeah. She's like, oh, Clark Kent doesn't like him either, huh? Yeah. You're like, oh, fuck.
Well, Booster was like...
It feels like she's spurning him on a little bit.
It's true, yeah. Booster was one of the first...
She's getting the bull all revved up for later.
So she can get the horns.
Oh.
Singular.
You gotta be careful. It's Superman.
Yeah. He's already revved up.
It's the Man of Steel. Ooh. Booster is one of the first characters they ever created after Crisis on Infinite Earths.
No, that's a metal. It's not a stone. Very different.
Edit point.
As I explained chemical compounds to Richard.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was Booster Gold Volume 1, number 7. I like this one because I think it's, even though it's actually like part 2 of a story, I think it's nicely self-contained in terms of they give you all the information you need to know, like why they're on this planet. But also it's neat seeing someone who's so iconically superheroic, like Superman, deal with someone who's partially in it for them in themselves, partially trying to do the right thing, but doesn't know what they're doing. I like that dynamic. But it's not the dynamic of like a mentor. Superman isn't taking Booster under his wing because Booster doesn't want that and is too much of a hothead, and he's just shitty. Like Superman doesn't want to help him. He's trying his level best, but Booster is not likable in this particular context. I kind of like that. He pushes Superman's buttons. That even someone as good as Superman is like, just keep him out of my way.
Yeah,
please.
It definitely has like a little. He has a little brother vibe where it's just like, why does he have to come to everything that I do?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Can you just stay at home? Can we get him a different hobby?
Yeah.
Can he just be a model? I think at one point he is a model. He points that out in that comic where he's like. He says something to him about that.
Well, yeah, because Booster has built like a bit of like a media empire. Like in the comics, they make Booster Gold comics. Like he sells action figures.
Those guys show up in the beginning to like drop off a comic book that they've made of him.
Yeah, exactly.
And to his like secretary or press lady or whatever, and the guy was like, "I had a really good time writing you. I feel like I know you.
Yeah,
we should spend a night together."
It's very like sleazy corporate.
It's very sexual.
Yeah,
but not in a fun way, in a very creepy way.
Totally.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to Facebook for some questions.
Booster Gold related questions.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time we've done this.
Yeah, I don't think we've done it just on a specific character. I thought it'd be kind of fun because like Booster Gold is actually kind of like a fan favorite.
Is he? Because I've never heard of him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a casual comic book reader, you might not know who he is, but because he was so kind of big in that like late 80s, early 90s, and then came up again after the death of Blue Beetle in, God, whatever year that was, like mid 2000s. Booster's got quite a following.
Yeah, it's the 80s. He's getting ladies.
That's pretty good. I like
nice.
That.
Yeah. Write that down.
So has he made any television appearances?
Yes.
Really?
In season 10, I think, of Smallville, there is an episode with Booster Gold. And he's almost got like the Captain Amazing from Mystery Men thing going on, where he's like sponsored.
Okay,
but it's an episode with the new Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes. But Booster Gold is in there. He has one television appearance there. He does show up a lot in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon.
Oh, really?
There's a great episode where Booster is given like a crowd control while the Justice League is fighting like the actual threat, but Booster ends up like saving the universe and no one knows. Because everyone's just, he like saves the day, but it like alters reality and no one knows that he did it. And he just has to like finally be happy that he knows that he was a hero. Like he has to learn about the fame versus, like heroism sort of thing. And it's a great episode. In that episode, like little kids that keep coming up to him and be like, "Can you sign this for me?" And then he'll give them the signature. And they'll be like, "Oh, I thought you were Green Lantern." They'll like walk away. It's a really funny bit. So that's a good episode. So yeah, Booster does show up in things, but yeah. But yeah, he's a bit of a fan favorite. So I thought it would be fun if we turned it around and got some specific Booster Gold questions.
So this week he showed up on Facebook.
Exactly.
Into the Facebook, we're gonna take a look.
Holy shit.
Man, are you practicing? Yeah.
He was doing that in the mirror for 10 minutes before you showed up.
With different,
you're not stupid.
But with different words. He's like, nope, that's not going to work.
They're not going to make fun of you this time.
You're not good enough.
Don't rhyme look with look.
Yeah, that's right.
It's book with.
You're looking in a mirror. It's too obvious.
He has that written on his hand.
Yeah. Well, it's actually left hand says look, the right hand says
yeah,
look.
that's right. Lenny White, Carl Black.
That's
Simpsons. So Chad Bokelman says in a questionable way,
Mr. Bokelman.
Could you explain his family tree? Questions now closed. The doctor is going to need the whole show for this one. Ha ha, teasing, of course.
Yeah.
I hate it when we do these things in parentheses because I don't know if I should read it out loud or not.
I like when you awkwardly do it.
Yeah.
I hate you guys.
So I'm not going to tell you which one we prefer.
That one actually was all part of the same comment. So, yeah, Booster's family tree is interesting. So, Booster Gold, like I said, his name is Michael John Carter. When he comes back to the past to try and make himself a famous superhero, he's joined not that much later by his sister, Michelle Carter, who becomes the hero Gold Star, and she gets killed. And that weighs on him because she comes back to help him and to be with him, and his sort of arrogance, and that is partly why she gets killed. So already, brother and sister, both superheroes. We find out much, much later that a character that existed long before Booster Gold existed is Rip Hunter, who is one of the leads on Legends of Tomorrow. He's the Time Master. He's the guy in the long coat. Yeah, exactly. Rip Hunter is a Time Master, and that character has been around since like the 50s or 60s. But you discover, like in like comics that came out in like the 2000s, that Rip Hunter is not his real name. He took a fake name to protect his identity from other people traveling through time, so people couldn't find him as a baby and kill him. He's actually Booster Gold's son,
Aaron Carter.
It's weird how that could totally work, though.
Oh God,
he's pretty and famous.
Is
Aaron Carter either of those now?
Okay, so what you're going to do now, as
Booster Gold?
As a listener, you're now going to sneak away to Google, and you're going to look up Aaron Carter and puke.
Yeah.
Because he looks awful now. He looks worse than Macaulay Culkin did when everyone thought he was on heroin. And Macaulay Culkin now looks good. Very weird.
His brother?
Nick Carter?
Yeah, the Aaron Carter.
Aaron Carter's the younger brother.
Oh, is it? Oh,
and he is not. He's not looking.
No, he looks like a crackhead.
Yeah, he's looking like vanilla melted ice.
Oh.
Surprisingly, not related to Sean Carter.
Nobody knows who
or John Carter, or John Johns, or Jeff Johns. But yeah, so Rip Hunter is Booster Gold's son.
Jay-Z.
Booster Gold, at one point also.
Jay-Z's real name is Sean Carter?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Didn't you know that?
I did not. I'm not a huge hip hop.
I don't like the hip and the hop.
I'm not a big hip and the hop.
No.
I want to know where this goes.
No, edit point. Booster Gold, for a little bit, was also the superhero named Supernova. But then Booster Gold actually encounters Supernova, who's acting evilly, and he discovers that Supernova is actually his father, who... so his father, his name is Jonar, I think. Jonar Carter. He's the one that had
Bonar.
He's the one that had the gambling issue in that, but he becomes like a villainous supernova. But then there's a different person who has also been supernova. His name is Daniel Carter, and he is like the 21st century ancestor of Booster Gold. So we've got Daniel Carter, Jonar Carter, Michael John Carter, Michelle Carter, and Rip Hunter are all part of Booster Gold's family, and they all are either heroes or villains. That's the Booster Gold family tree.
Talk about a family reunion.
What about it?
Well, it would just be a fight.
Well, only one of them's evil.
Like all family reunions.
Well,
let me tell you.
No.
Why not?
Stop it. You're supposed to be on my side.
Yes, come to the dark side.
Listen here, sir.
You've got deep-seated family issues.
No, I really don't. Not like yours. Let's keep moving on.
Let's do it.
We're going to Twitter. Tweet. No.
Technically.
We should do the Morse code soundtrack, but with tweets. Tweet.
Tweedly, tweedly, tweet. Tweedly, tweedly, tweet.
Walking on the internet all day long. I'm on the Twitter gonna sing my song.
Dude, you're seriously practicing. This is getting better every
It's a shame
time.
we didn't record any of that.
What a waste. That'd be the weirdest edit point. Having to cut in him doing something really good. And everyone's going to wonder if it was actually done on the spot or if it was just a multiple take.
Right.
Poor Richard.
The great part is that I can do multiple takes when you guys leave.
It can't be a weirder edit point than saying, let's go to Twitter and then spending 6 minutes on that.
I've got a lot of time on my hands.
So, from Talking Superman, maybe too philosophical, but do you think it should be considered immoral for a superhero to find ways to get paid saving people? Can I take
you go.
This incited a lot of conversation.
Can I take this one?
Well, sure. Yeah, you go for it.
Yeah,
actually.
I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
I kind of think that based on my limited knowledge of comic books and heroes and villains, what I see is that the villains are usually ones that are taking money or trying to like rob situations or whatever.
Well, yeah.
And then the superheroes are philanthropists because they already have trillions of billions of mazillions of dollars.
Some of them. Not all of them are billionaires.
Well, Batman's got $1 billion.
Yeah, that's one.
He doesn't really have any power, so that's his.
Most
Iron
are not
Man-
billionaires,
Iron Man.
I would say.
Iron Man. It's
Marvel.
Is that Marvel? Okay, sorry. That's my bad. Robert Downey Jr. did a great
We've
thing.
been doing it since episode 1.
He came back from the near dead, and now he's healthy. It's nice. It's good to see the guy doing good stuff.
Yeah, we're digressing.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird.
I mean, you're right. Generally, villains are out like robbing or things like that. And heroes don't rob, but that's not what the question is. Whether or not reimbursing a hero for their services is immoral. It is an interesting conversation because initially when Talking Superman just wrote the question, I was going to say like, yeah, it's immoral. And then as soon as that thing came up about police and firefighters, I was like, well, no, that's a good point. There is something to be said for the actual like funding of superhero. I might have mentioned it on the podcast before, but there was a point in the comics where Bruce Wayne publicly, as a means to weirdly distance himself from Batman, publicly declared that Wayne Enterprises would fund an organization called Batman Incorporated. And Batman Incorporated basically would supply tech and like resources to the Batmen of different nations. So in England,
Batman of different nations.
So in England, it's Knight and Squire.
Way cooler.
In France, it's Night Runner. He's like a parkour Batman.
What is that? What is that in French?
I got it. My name is Night Runner.
That was good.
This guy is seriously practicing when we're not around.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm scared.
But yes,
hello, little clown.
There's El Gaucho in
Mr. Mime. Yeah. Oh, that's the Joker from France.
Mr. Mime.
His name would be Le Mime.
Le Mime.
Oh, that's.
I see you again, Mr. Mime.
He's even scarier though because you can't hear him coming. No, I don't like that look at all.
I love how you walked into one. Now,
did. At any rate, there is a precedent even in comic books of there being a bit of like a funding model for some like superheroes. I think where it gets murky is that in the case of Booster Gold, it's not that he's being reimbursed for his services. It's that he wants to be rich and that he wants to be famous. Those are things that are beyond just like recouping the costs of superheroing, right? So I think those are things that kind of like corrupt that heroic journey. And it's not that it makes him evil. It doesn't, but it does, like split his priorities. Like, do you save the day or do you save your reputation? And ultimately what happens to Booster Gold in the comics, his ultimate mission is to go through time and stop these like universe destroying time anomalies. But the only way they can get away with it is if his reputation is so shitty that no one thinks he's the one that could go through time and fix them. He basically has to like be a joke to the Justice League in order to be like the ultimate time travel secret agent. So like where Booster Gold's
Why are you doing this to me? I'm liking him more now.
So where Booster Gold's arc ends up is that he basically has to give up the only things he ever wanted, like fame and wealth and that, to become the hero that he actually thinks he can be and to live up to Ted Kord, the deceased Blue Beetle's example. So that's like his heroic journey. And I think it kind of proves that maybe it's not immoral to pay a superhero, but it's definitely immoral to superhero with the intention of making money.
I also like to use superhero as a
verb.
As a verb.
I'm
superhero.
I superhero, you superhero, he superheroes, she superhero. Yeah. Yeah, verb tables. Tune in, everyone.
Dr. English next.
Dr. Grammar.
Is that me? The grammar Nazi.
No.
I mean, like only because they have different like perspectives on the world. Yeah.
See, we have different ideals, but
Nope, that's not the one.
They do have very different ideas.
Very close.
Nope, that's not the one.
Oh, Mr. Colin.
Can we bring Mr. Mime back?
Stop it.
Let's bring back Mr. Mime. He doesn't talk.
Mr. Mime.
Oh.
See you again, Mr. Mime.
Avatar of the Green has one for us.
My boy.
Oh, boy.
Has anyone from his time ever come to our present to charge him for the theft of the suit and the flight ring?
So, I think the best example of things catching up with him from stealing those things from the museum is that the time sphere that he steals is Rip Hunter's. And eventually Rip Hunter is the one who recruits him and basically becomes his mentor on this, like fixing the time anomalies mission. And Booster doesn't know that Rip is his son, but Rip becomes his mentor. So in a way, the penance for stealing that time sphere is that he becomes embroiled in the fight to preserve all of time. So in a way, like Rip is kind of like his penance for taking that time sphere. But I think there's also an instance where like Booster encounters the Legion of Superheroes and they see that he has a Legion flight ring and they try and take that from him because they're like, you're not a member of the Legion. What are you doing with that thing? And he also has the force field belt, which is Brainiac 5's. So I think that also comes up as well. But as far as actual law enforcement, I don't know that they ever actually catch up with him. I don't think they do.
So like much of our friends who have children, the penance for having fun in your youth is to have children.
But you learn so much from them, you know?
That when wasn't exactly where I was headed.
When you're both adults at the same time.
Yeah, you know how fun it is when your future children are your mentor in your career, and then you find out later that that's what happened.
Yeah, and then you have a fight with your mentor, and you're like, whatever, dude, I'm totally going to bang your mom.
Like, I need you to, or I won't exist.
Sly wants to know,
my superpower.
Is he a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers?
I love this question.
I hate this question.
I love this question because it brings the real world into this. It also brings
things that you love.
It also brings sports into this. So it's hard to statistically prove one is better than the other.
And why are they even comparable? Like,
because Michael John Carter,
because he was a
quarterback. Now, believe it or not, there aren't full college football stat sheets for a fictional character.
Oh, I'm surprised.
You know what, though?
But
I'm going to call it. I'm actually going to call this one. Because earlier we were talking about how when crimes that he was having to, like, fight...
Yeah.
They don't get it, like, oh, and then he hit him with a left hand, and then he threw with the right. Well, unfortunately for everyone else... Sports goes into deep details.
Real sports does.
Everything. Oh. So he'd be a way better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers because if they were to be in a game time situation together, head to head, Tate, he would totally take him down.
No. He wasn't playing sports when he came back to the past. He was a football player in the future.
Why not, though?
And then he came back to the past and became a superhero.
Well, then, of course, he'd be better because it would be the future, and they'd have way more technology adaptations, and they would learn more. Like, you look back 50 years...
I feel like you didn't understand the question.
50 years ago, football, they didn't have some of the technological advances that we have now.
They didn't even have a ball.
The gear, watching tape. They didn't have that. So, of course, he'd be better.
Okay.
It's the future.
That's not necessarily true. What I will say is that we do know stats for Aaron Rodgers. We know that he's set records for, I think it's like passing yards and like fewest interceptions versus number of passes and things like that. We also know, just from being told by a comic book, that Booster Gold had set multiple records, was on track to be pro. But ultimately, Booster never got out of college football. Aaron Rodgers played in the NFL. He made it pro. He's won a Super Bowl. So on the Super Bowl count, Booster has none. Aaron Rodgers has one. Booster also deliberately threw games and gambled on his own games, which is like...
Does Aaron Rodgers have a Super Bowl win?
He does, I think.
Oh, well,
Super Bowl
guess what Booster
45?
Gold has on his hand? A fucking flight ring, bitch.
Okay, here's this question.
Oh no, I need to allow that because that's amazing that I said the words Legion flight ring and they stuck.
That's true. I am impressed that happened. Here's my question though.
Yeah.
Do you think that 50 or 60 years ago, the football players that existed would be able to beat any of the football players that exist now?
Ooh. That I don't know. I mean, I would say if you just took the teams and put them up against each other, no, because Colin's point is actually pretty valid. The game has changed a lot, and look at the physical training.
That's what I mean.
A football player now is twice the size of a football player.
I'm going to take it one step further, actually, because you said he played college ball, Booster Gold.
Yeah.
I would dare to say that a college player now could take on a pro from 30 years ago.
That's probably fair.
And I just
actually
think that the level of expectation is constantly
I think,
raising.
and we're talking about trajectory.
And when we consider that Booster was playing in the 2400s, then I think if we use that logic, then even though he doesn't have a Super Bowl, he never made it to pro, and even though we don't statistically know what records he broke, the fact that he broke records 300 years in the future, I think makes him better than Aaron Rodgers.
There we go.
Also, if you're an Aaron Rodgers fan, I'm sorry, but we'll never have a definitive answer to this.
I think we've proven it.
Yeah.
Oh, we can also look at it in the hockey terms as well, because
that makes sense.
No, in terms of, but just in terms of trajectory and stats.
Sure.
So Gordie Howe held. Mr. Hockey held the points lead record for forever. And then a young man known as Wayne Gretzky or the Great One took him down.
Now, hockey's it's interesting that you bring that up because there are records in hockey that I think because the game has changed
will never be broken.
Yeah. For example, Teemu Solani's rookie season, he scored 79 goals or something like that. It's impossible. You're not going to see someone
I think
score
the last guy to do
in their rookie season. It just won't happen.
The last guy to do a big run was Steven Stamkos, who plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
But he
had 660 plus.
It's hard for players to break 50 goals, and that was what Richard, that was his record. That was something that he could do. Yeah. And that was back in like the 50s or 60s. So hockey is an interesting example that you bring it up because it almost proves the opposite point that like the game changes and those records become unbreakable now. So, but either way, if Booster,
the point that I'm trying to get at with that is that to break a record that seems impossible to break, right? And because the trajectory of a game, it gets harder to break those records because they get so out of control, right? So, yeah.
Like, no one's going to do Wilt Chamberlain's, like, 100-point NBA game, right? That hasn't been broken, has it? I don't follow basketball, so if that's been broken, hashtag Chamberlain, yes.
Or actually, put LeBron, yes.
Yeah. James. But yeah, so I mean, I think based on the Colin logic, which I'm on board with, I think, Booster's probably a better quarterback.
Well, there you go, Sly.
Thanks for coming out, Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah. What an honor.
You 5'4" weirdo.
I got a question for you. Who's better quarterback? Aaron Rodgers?
The scariest part is that he hitched a ride here on Swamp Thing through the ficus. He wasn't here a minute ago.
Yeah, grab that green guy. That Len wasn't using him, so.
Nice. Thank you for being here, Sly.
No problem, man.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, that was
Expendables.
Yeah, that's right.
Which number are they up to now? 3, 7?
They've
12?
done 3.
Oh, okay, good.
But that was the Booster Gold episode, so we actually like focused on a single character. I think that was actually kind of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I enjoyed that.
And Sly showed up.
And I think I've earned back
no problem.
And I think I've earned back Colin's trust a little bit in terms of the reading assignments. So I think this was useful.
We're back on track.
Yeah, that's
We're back
right.
on track. Well, if you'd like to get a hold of us, you can contact us with questions at our Facebook,
Dr. DC Podcast.
our email,
drdcpodcast@gmail.com.
on Twitter,
At Dr. DC.
Instagram. You can watch goofy pictures and boomerang shots of
Dr. DC Podcast.
That's the one.
And make sure you rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes.
Let me translate. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. 5-star review. Leave us a What Colin Does. And also, you can submit your questions through our website as well, drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
Well, some kind of sign off.
Adios.
You're the man, Rock.
I'm the man, all the superheroes. They always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure.